The film incorporates four entwined stories. Opening, a couple dressed as a robot and Blaze Gordon return to their home. The front grass brightened with various phantom crows and lit pumpkins. The robot, Emma, takes a jack-o'-lamp to Victory the light, yet her sweetheart, Henry, tells her that it's against custom to unembellish before 12 p.m. Emma states that she needs to get rid of the multitude of embellishments before her mom visits the following morning, saying that the yard seems to be a crime location, and smothers the candle. Henry, a genuine devotee of the occasion, vows to eliminate everything promptly the following morning and persuades Emma to meet him inside for some alone time. While he goes in to put on the tape, Emma begins to bring down a portion of the enhancements down, expressing the unpardonable, "I can't stand Halloween." As she eliminates the sheets off one of the apparition crows, it jumps at her, covering her in the white fabric. In the resulting battle, Emma tumbles onto the walkway where passing stunt-or-treaters stop to examine. Under the sheets, a figure takes a nibbled pumpkin-molded sucker and cuts Emma's throat. Her blood stains through the sheets and the kids take off. The secret aggressor hauls Emma's body back to the yard as Henry lies higher up, dropped and with the television on high volume. Sometime later, he sees Emma has not come up and goes down to the yard where he sees that one of the phantom crows currently has lights connected to it. He eliminates the sheet and shouts at seeing Emma's free head on a stake, the pumpkin sucker stopped in her mouth. In the interim, the Halloween merriments and gatherings go on all through the town and a procession walks down the central avenue while the outline of a short figure strolls through the group, hauling a burlap sack with a dim stain at the base. The head, a stout kid, strolls through the local pushing over jack-o'-lights. He stops at one house and approaches the patio where it shows up nobody is home. A container brimming with candy is set out with a sign saying, "Kindly take one." The kid starts to place the whole items in the can in his pack when somebody surprises him from behind. The kid perceives the man as head Stephen Wilkins, who tends to the kid as Charlie. Wilkins plunks down on his yard, welcoming Charlie to sit and converse with him as he offers him a chocolate bar. Wilkins clears up rules of manners and how to appropriately regard Halloween. At the point when Charlie starts to hack, Wilkins makes sense of the main rule of Halloween: consistently take a look at your sweets. Charlie viciously retches blood and chocolate and drops. Wilkins hauls Charlie into the house, the blood and chocolate combination overflowing onto his shirt, similarly as his doorbell rings. Battling with the body, he answers and sees three youngsters who inquire as to whether they can take his jack-o'-light. He concurs and gives them generally some treats, including a little kid sporting orange-footed nightgown and a burlap hood with buttons for eyes and sewing for a mouth. Wilkins then dumps Charlie's body in a huge opening dove in his backyard where another kid's body as of now lies. As he attempts to cover the bodies, his little child, Billy, shows up in the higher-up window and yells down to him more than once, requesting help on his jack-o'-lamp and in the event that they'll give out treats. Wilkins, disappointed, lets him know each opportunity to be peaceful and hang tight for him inside. In the meantime, the neighbor's canine methodologies the wall and starts yapping as the principal kid in the grave starts to groan, connecting from under grimy sheets with a comedian-costumed arm. Wilkins cuts the kid's arm with his digging tool and cuts off one of his fingers, tossing it over the wall and diverting the canine. In any case, its sullen proprietor, Mr. Krieg, comes into the yard and looks through an opening in the wall to address Wilkins, actually battling with the comedian youngster. Wilkins makes his movement and the smell look like a septic tank hole, and Mr. Krieg returns into his home, yelling back to Wilkins to get his child out of his yard. Wilkins polishes the comedian youngster off with a blow from his digging tool and finishes covering the bodies. As he strolls once more into his home, he sees a hysterical Krieg motioning to him from his window across the way. Harsh Wilkins overlooks him and goes into the house as Krieg is handled by something. In the kitchen, Billy leaps out from behind a counter, terrifying Wilkins and requesting help on his jack-o'-lite. Apparently irritated, Wilkins takes a butcher blade from the blade block and follows Billy to the storm cellar. Billy runs ahead to a table canvassed in cutting materials and Wilkins approaches behind him. Billy says, "We should make an unnerving face this time," as Wilkins puts his hand on Billy's head and cuts the blade down, blood flickering on the cutting edge as he moves it back. Be that as it may, Billy grins and says, "Remember to assist me with the eyes," as they check out together at the cut-off head of Charlie on a wooden turntable. Impromptu get-together, Lori is a 22-year-old virgin, who is modest and unsure. Her more established sister, Danielle, attempts to support her certainty by taking her to a Halloween party with two of her companions. The young ladies generally dress in fantasy ensembles while Lori is stuck as Minimal Red Riding Hood, a decision she disdains. However, her sister tells her it's custom. They stroll through town while heading to the party getting dates. However, Lori is deterred. She selects to meet the young ladies at the party later. In the meantime, a young lady makes out with a veiled man in a back street. He tenderly kisses her neck. Be that as it may, when she peers down, she sees blood running down her body. The man grins, uncovering blood on his teeth. The lady shouts and advances toward the road where individuals are accumulated for the motorcade. Emma and Henry stroll by in ensemble, however disregard her, believing she's simply one more alcoholic party participant concealed in make blood. The lady pivots to see the vampire remaining behind her and shouts as he swings his shroud around her. He leaves her dead body on the walkway resting up against a structure, as though she's just dropped, and leaves. At the huge fire party in the forest, Danielle remains solitary, stressing over Lori. The others guarantee her that Lori's fine, yet Danielle ponders, saying that their mom consistently said Lori was the half pint of the litter. As Lori strolls down a faintly lit way in the forest, she detects somebody is following her and yells out that she's not in that frame of mind and they would be wise to emerge. At the point when nobody answers, she turns and encounters the vampire. He snatches her by the neck and holds her against a tree, saying, my, what huge eyes you have," prior to gnawing her neck. At the party, the young ladies are surprised when a shrouded body drops out of a tree close to the fire. Danielle apprehensively moves toward the body and eliminates the shroud to see the vampire, draining and asking for help. His cover is eliminated and head Wilkins flickers in the firelight, crying. Lori shows up and guarantees everybody she's alright, regardless of the blood overflowing from her neck. She moves toward Wilkins and rides him, advising him to hold on for her since it's her most memorable time. Different young ladies begin to move as Wilkins glances around in shock to see that their dates are all dead. Lori eliminates his phony teeth as the young ladies rip off their skin, uncovering coarse fur and lupin teeth. Lori starts to change herself and inclines down to Wilkins to murmur, my, what large eyes you have," prior to rushing into Wilkins' neck. Different werewolves finish the remaining parts of their dates, crying at the moon, as Sam looks on from a close-by log. 3. The Halloween school transport slaughter. 4 costumed young people scour the neighborhood for jack-o'-lamps and stop at the home of a companion named Rhonda, dressed as a witch, whose yard is finished with many there. Regardless of the way that she's viewed as a dolt intellectual and nicknamed Rhonda the Retard by the head of the gathering, Macy, dressed as a heavenly messenger, Schrader asks obligingly for one of her pumpkins and welcomes her to accompany them, commending her on her outfit. Macy leads them forward while Rhonda talks momentarily with Chip, a privateer, about the beginnings of Halloween. They show up at an unwanted stone quarry and Sarah, an outsider, inquires as to for what reason they're there and what the motivation behind the jack-o'-lamps is. Macy makes sense of that the quarry is the site of a lethal transport crash 30 years earlier that has turned into the stuff of legend. The transport was conveying 8 intellectually upset youngsters, clad in outlandish Halloween outfits, thus grieved that they must be fastened to their seats. That portentous day, the driver veered off from his ordinary course while bringing the children back home. Their folks, presently not ready to stand the strain and embarrassment of really focusing on them, paid the driver to finally give them some closure by driving the transport into the lake at the lower part of the stone quarry, meaning to make it seem to be a terrible mishap. In any case, while twofold really taking a look at the limitations on the children, one of them, a covered vampire, can free himself and seize the transport, rehashing that he needs to return home. Upset and confounded as he is, the kid coincidentally places the transport in stuff and pushes it past the brink of the cliffside into the lake before the driver can stop him. Macy says that the driver may do, however, was at absolutely no point ever heard from in the future, and the transport was rarely recuperated, potentially in light of the fact that the remainder of the town simply didn't have any desire to annoy. The 8 jack-o'-lamps gathered address the 8 spirits lost that day and are intended to be left at the lakeside as a contribution. They stroll to a feeble lift and Macy, Sarah, and Schrader get in with their pumpkins to go down to the lake. Since the lift will just hold 3 all at once, Chip and Rhonda hang tight for it to return for them. On their way down, they hear the terrified cries and shouts of the other 3 and watch as the lights of their jack-o'-lamps go out in the fog. Rhonda advises Chip to remain in the lift with the excess pumpkins, saying that they will safeguard him, as she goes to examine. Strolling through the fog, she ultimately comes to the destruction of the half-lowered school transport and sees the veils of the others drifting in the water. She is unexpectedly gone after by 2 water-doused figures shrouded in chains and rushes to see a third gutting Chip. As they pursue her, Rhonda drops and steps on her glasses prior to stumbling and hitting her head on a stone, passing out. At the point when she comes to, she sees the figures remaining over her and shouts in dread, yet one of them, really Schrader in mask, makes sense of that it was only a horrible trick played by every one of them and attempts to apologize. Macy is unremorseful and kicks a still-lit jack-o'-light into the lake as murmurs and chuckles unexpectedly reverberation out of the fog. Schrader drives Rhonda to the lift and, when he hears the others shouting, advises her to wait while he goes to see what's up, however he thinks another ploy. Yet, when he gets together with the others, they all see the figures of the 8 dead kids emerge from the lake, still tied in their chains. They run for the lift, however Sarah is gotten by a strand of chains and hauled away. The other 3 come to the lift to see Rhonda locked inside with the remainder of the jack-o'-lights, looking morose yet quiet. They implore her to open the entryway, yet Rhonda, apparently in a shock, presses the button to go up and passes on the others to their destiny as the phantom youngsters encompass them. Rhonda exits the lift and leaves the quarry, towing her pumpkins in her red cart. She momentarily checks out and passes Sam, sitting inside a concrete line, as Macy, Schrader, and Chip shout and are torn separated. Meet Sam. 3 stunt-or-treaters stroll up the patio of a dim, old house with no Halloween enrichments and apprehensively thump on the entryway. It opens to pitch dimness and they anxiously hold out their packs, saying trick or treat. 2 gleaming eyes show up and snarling is heard. The kids take off as the beast pursues them across the yard and Mr. Krieg shows up in the entryway. He shouts to his canine, Resentment, and gets him to eliminate the beast outfit and sparkling headpiece. He gathers the youngsters' dropped treat sacks and withdraws inside, where he continues to consume old pictures in his chimney prior to getting comfortable his seat to sit in front of the television. He whittles down a confection, however, sickened with it, trades it for a jug of alcohol. Since there isn't anything on television that doesn't have a say in Halloween, Krieg switches it off and hears dislike woofing outside prior to seeing an egg hit his window. He rushes to the front entryway and opens it to see that his whole yard is designed with many jack-o'-lamps. Demonstrate hatred for keeps on yelping in the backyard, and Krieg goes to examine where he has his discussion with Wilkins. Subsequent to completing the finger that Wilkins tossed over to him, Disdain runs back inside and starts to bark higher up. Krieg follows him up and strolls carefully into his room where he sees something moving under the covers. He pulls back the sweeping to see a motorized hand before a pumpkin, set on a table in the corner, unexpectedly begins regurgitating flares, washing the room in orange light and uncovering words wrote all around the walls and roof, "Stunt or treat, give me something great to eat." Krieg then, at that point, shouts as something cuts him from under the bed. He tumbles to the ground and admirers see Sam show up from the opposite side of the bed. Sam shows him a treat and strips back the wrapping to uncover a disposable cutter inside prior to going after. Krieg shouts and figures out how to get away from down the corridor yet stumbles on the arrival to the steps and tumbles to the base. The flight of stairs is shrouded in little sweets and disposable cutters and Krieg flinches at his hands, canvassed in horrendous cuts. Battling as Sam goes after once more, Krieg comes to the far window where he shouts to Wilkins not long prior to being handled. He attempts to fend off Sam and figures out how to rip off his burlap veil. Rather than tracking down a human kid's face under, Sam's face is a terribly twisted pumpkin with beady eyes and sharp teeth. Krieg acquires the advantage and gets hold of his shotgun, firing Sam across the room where he droops against the front entryway. Krieg shoots him again at short proximity, cutting off Sam's hand, prior to dialing 911. Yet, the line goes dead and Krieg is wounded in the leg again by Sam's cut-off hand. It slithers back to Sam and reattaches itself to the stump. Sam gets up and returns his veil on as Krieg upholds against the wall, thumping a table and its items to the floor. Sam eliminates a pumpkin sucker from his pocket and whittles down it, showing the sharp-edged indentations. He moves toward Krieg, arm raised to cut him and bring the sucker down on Krieg's chest. Rather than wounding him, notwithstanding, Sam stops the sucker in the disposed of treat Krieg had opened before, which had arrived on his chest after he pushed the table over. Sam continues to bite on the confection and leaves the room, seeming fulfilled. He glances back at Krieg, who watches in puzzlement, prior to going out. The entryway closes voluntarily. We then see one of the photos that Krieg had tossed into the fire. It shows the 8 children from the transport slaughter, uncovering that Krieg was the driver. Afterward, an intensely gauzed Krieg answers the doorbell to give candy to some deceive-or-treaters. From his yard, he sees Sam go towards Emma and Henry's house across the way similarly as she is smothering the flame to one of her jack-o'-lamps. Rhonda then, at that point, strolls by along the road, pulling her cart missing-mindedly, and is nearly hit by a vehicle conveying the werewolf young ladies, giggling in human structure. Billy Wilkins sits on his yard passing out treats, wearing an ensemble to emulate his dad's appearance complete with glasses and horrendous shirt, ignorant that his dad is dead. Krieg strolls back inside and the chime rings once more. He opens it to see the youngsters from the transport slaughter remaining on his patio. The kid with the vampire veil says stunt or treat and broadens his pack before the youngsters jump forward and start to tear Krieg separated.